Hey everyone, in today's video I'll be going over the best archer build you can use in Elden Ring. Best part about it is you won't even have to respec your stats either with how low the stat requirements are. Don't forget to subscribe for more weekly content. I also have a Discord set up for anyone looking for more people to play with. The link to that and other Elden Ring related videos will be in the description down below. Let's start the build off with the weapons of choice. For our primary weapon that we're going to use against most enemies in the game is the longbow. It does the most damage out of the other bows, it has a free Ash of War spawn on it, and for how easily you can get this, you just have to buy it from the twin sisters at the round table. The arrows I'm using with this are the fire arrows and the serpent arrows. The reason for the fire arrows is mainly because I can just buy them from a merchant instead of crafting them, and for their good damage. It's really nice because you have the option to spend more time to get arrows by crafting them and saving money, or spend money on the arrows and save time. I'll also put links in the description down below for all the gear I'm using if you want to check it out. The serpent arrows are used for very strong boss enemies that have a lot of health. It places a poison status effect after a couple of shots, dealing damage based on their max health. So it would be a complete waste not to take advantage of this. They're also the same thing as the fire arrows. You can either craft them or buy them. For the Ash of War, I'm using Mighty Shot, which makes you pull the bow back farther, taking an extra second or two to charge up, and then releasing a really powerful shot that can even do damage when enemies are blocking. It doesn't cost a lot of mana to use, and the damage you can put out is really good. You mainly use this skill with the fire arrows for more damage. Because the serpent arrows, we need to fire them off as quickly as possible to place the status effect that's going to do the damage, so the impact of the arrow doesn't do a whole lot. With our secondary weapon, which we're going to use more for boss fights or really strong enemies, is the Pulley's crossbow. The damage on it isn't anything special. The part that is special is how fast you can shoot bolts out of this thing. It's a 3-round burst crossbow with a fairly quick reload time. The bolts that would work best with this are the buried bolts, which inflict a bleed buildup, or just any bolts that inflict a status effect. With this, you'll be able to proc blood losses in strong enemies so fast and easy, they won't even feel like tough enemies or actual boss fights. Again, the same thing with these, you can either craft them or purchase them from a merchant. Our secondary bolts, I'm just using fire bolts for some damage because there aren't any other bolts that can place a status effect that you can buy. You can craft bolts that would place poison, frost, and scarlet rot buildup, but I'm kinda lazy and I'd rather buy them. So for weapons, the longbow for weak to medium tier enemies, and the crossbow for stronger boss-like enemies. Now I'll go over the Flask of Wondrous Physic. This, I'm using the Fire Shrouding tier, which is going to increase the damage of our fire arrows by just a little bit, nothing crazy. The other tier I like to use is the Crimson Burst Crystal tier, mainly because it works really well with one of our talismans. It basically saves us from using a regular flask so we don't have to waste one. Next, I'll go over the talismans and then how to maximize the damage you can do with this setup. The first talisman is the Arrow's Sting. This just increases our bow and crossbow damage by 10%. The second talisman is Arrow's Reach. By the name of it, it increases our range with bows and crossbows. It also reduces the damage drop off by a lot when you're shooting from a distance. The third talisman is the Ritual Sword. This gives us a 10% increased damage buff whenever we're at full health. This is where the Wondrous Physic tier Crimson Burst comes clutch, because instead of wasting a full health flask just to recover a little bit of health for this damage buff, the Wondrous Flask slowly restores our health for 3 minutes, so we waste less resources in the end result. The last talisman is the Shard of Alexander, which we're using to increase the damage of the Ash of War Mighty Shot. For how we're going to maximize this build is really easy. Just use the bow with fire arrows for dealing with most of the enemies in the game. Then, when it comes to bosses, you'll want to use the poison arrows to passively do damage over time. Then switch to your crossbow and unload the bleed bolts into it. With the blood loss and poison going off at the same time, the boss fight will feel really easy. Now I'll show you where you can get all of these items, and afterwards the stats required. The longbow can be bought from the twin sisters at the round table for 1200 runes. The fire arrows can be bought from the merchant right beside the Astray from Khalid Highway North resting place. He sells them for 120 runes each, and again, they can be crafted if that's too much for you. Or you can just use regular arrows for less damage though. The poison arrows can be bought from the merchant that's right beside the isolated merchant's shack. You can buy them at the same price as the fire arrows at 120 runes per arrow. To get the pulley's crossbow, you'll have to reach the craftsman's shack, where it'll be laying on top of a body for you to pick up. To get the buried bolts that inflict bleed, you'll have to buy them from the merchant located by the Dynasty Mausoleum entrance resting place. When you go inside the cave, you'll want to hug the left side of the wall until you see a light. That'll be the merchant you can buy these bolts from. He sells them for 200 souls each, but the damage you get out of it is fully worth it. The fire bolts can be bought from the merchant that's located near the Southern Aeonia Swamp Bank resting place. He's going to sell them for the same amount as the fire arrows for 120 souls each. For the Flask of Wondrous Physic, the Flame Shrouding tier can be rewarded after defeating the Erd Tree Avatar boss. You can find him west of the Smoldering Church resting place, right under the really big tree. To get the Crimson Burst Crystal tier, you'll want to reach the Church of Pilgrimage resting area. From here, you just head south towards the big tree, where you'll have to fight another Erd Tree Avatar boss in order for it to drop. Now for the talismans. You can find Arrow Sting right beside the Impassable Bridge resting place. You just have to climb up the big structure that's right beside it, and you'll find it right inside a chest. To get Arrow's Reach, you'll want to be at the Stormhill Shack resting place. From here, we go down the path, but staying on the right side of it. Afterwards, you'll see a castle-like pillar. Just go inside and it'll be waiting for you in the chest there. For the Ritual Sword Talisman, you'll want to reach the Atlas Plateau resting place. From here, you'll head up the hill and through the Lux Ruins. At the end of it, you should see a staircase leading underground where you'll have to defeat a boss to get it. Lastly, to get the Shard of Alexander, you'll need to finish the Iron Fist Alexander's quest line, which can be started by heading south of the War Master's shack, where you'll find him half buried. Now I'll go over the stats required for this build to work. You'll need a minimum of 16 strength and 16 dex. Nothing crazy at all and very easily manageable. That's everything for today's video. I'd like to give a big thanks to the members of my channel for supporting me on my videos and the future ones to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.